So you want to learn self-defense, but you're not quite sure where you want to begin? What is the best martial arts for self-defense? What is the best martial arts system that's going to help me protect myself out on the street in a real-world situation? Now, I can understand, especially firsthand, that with the amount of different systems or disciplines, as you may call it, that are out there today, it's very difficult and could be extremely overwhelming to even narrow it down to just one system to train for. So luckily for you, through all my experience, I have found 3 systems that I feel personally are probably some of the best systems to begin your self-defense training. But before we get to that, let's touch base on a few bits and pieces of criteria that you really need to look at first before you consider even beginning your self-defense journey. Now understand, you can't just go and join any martial arts system that you feel just because you see its name plastered up on a window or a building somewhere and it says, hey, we teach self-defense. This isn't like Harry Potter. You don't get a sorting hat that just tells you, hey, this is the system that you need to take, and if you take this system, you're going to be prepared for the street. That's not how it works when it comes to self-defense. After we start going through this criteria and then touch base on which systems I feel, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what self-defense system works for you. Because again, at the end of the day, everybody is different. Everyone's going to have a different approach. Everyone's going to need self-defense for a different reason, or in other words, they're going to have a different why for what they need that self-defense for. So once you can kind of answer those questions for you, hopefully then you can pick the right system and begin your self-defense training. Number 1. Are you looking for something that's a bit more of a quick fix? You know, maybe a 1 or 2 day training session, a weekend seminar, something that you can get over within a week or 2 because you're going off to school, you're going to be traveling, and you just want a quick fix of self-defense that can protect yourself and say, hey, I took a self-defense course, I learned a few things, let's hope it works out if I ever need to use it. Or are you looking for something a little bit more consistent and long-term where you're planning to train for years on end and really grasp the material? Now, the reason that I asked that question and that I also feel that you should ask yourself that question is because depending on how consistent you plan on being will drastically direct you towards one system or another. What I mean by that is this. If you have more time to train, that means you have more time to go through the repetitions, you get to practice more often, and you get to be more consistent overall. Again, if you're going a couple times a week, every week for years on end, then you can start with one of the more advanced disciplines that require you to really put in the time and effort to grasp the material that they're teaching you. On the other hand, if you're only looking for something that's short and sweet and essentially, again, to get your quick fix of self-defense, then maybe one of those advanced systems isn't for you, and instead you want to start with something that you can jump in and out whenever you can, whenever your schedule allows to, and there really isn't that big of a technical gap to where if you skip a few weeks or a few classes that you're not going to be completely lost the next time you come to class, and you're still going to be able to get something out of every class. Now again, that is probably one of the biggest pieces of criteria that I recommend that you really look at before you pick a self-defense discipline. Because again, how consistent you are really determines on where you're going to be able to go with learning and what systems are going to offer what. Because some systems may not teach you what you're looking for until you're 2, 3, 4+ years into that discipline before you're like, hey, I'm actually learning something that works. So have to keep that in mind. Number 2, are you willing to get physical with this discipline? Sounds like a stupid question, but believe me or not, it is something that I do come across with a lot of students. I don't want to get hurt, nor do I want to hurt my training partner. That's a big fear that a lot of people have when it comes to training. So again, that kind of pushes people back when they're like, oh, I really don't, I need self-defense, but I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get cut. I don't want to get bruised. I don't want to get hurt, injured, whatever the case is, to where I can't go about my daily activities outside of the martial arts. Now, I understand that's a big concern, but at the end of the day, if you are learning self-defense, you have to understand that it is going to be physical. You have to physically go through the motions. You have to be able to learn how to put pressure on somebody. You have to also feel what it's like to have pressure put onto you. I'm not saying you need to be knocked out or have any broken bones, because that's not what we're looking for. You don't want to have accidents, and we don't want to hurt ourselves or our training partners, but you still need to get physical to the point where you might get bruised a little bit. You might get a couple cuts. No big deal at the end of the day, but you're going to start learning how your body reacts to those types of situations. If you get punched in the face, you're going to learn very quickly how your body reacts. The more you can learn and understand how your body reacts, the better you're going to be able to control your body and your mind when it comes to a real situation. The more that you can learn how to become comfortable in uncomfortable positions, and I mean like if someone's smothering you, if someone's pinning you up against a wall, if someone's hitting you, if someone's just got multiple punches coming your way, if you got multiple attackers attacking you, all these types of different situations where people just get nervous on, the more that you train in those systems and the more that you're willing to put yourself in those situations and learn how to control yourself and control those situations, then the more comfortable you're going to be. And again, that transfers over directly to the street. So yes, if you can get physical in those situations, then that's also going to determine which system you go to. Number 3, do you have any prior experience in the martial arts? Now, I get a lot of students that come in that have said, yes, I've wrestled before, I've done Taekwondo before, I've done karate before. If you've done it for a little bit and you left simply just because you grew out of it, then find something completely different. Because if you left it because you got bored, then you're not really going to gain your interest back. If you left it simply just because you've kind of outgrown it, you've been doing it all your life and you want something fresh, great. Find something different. Now, if you're actively training in a system and you're looking to extend your knowledge, and what I recommend is that you find something that will complement the system that you're in. If you're doing boxing, there's really no need for you to jump into Thai boxing. In my opinion, if you've gotten some sort of striking experience, then maybe try something a bit more on the grappling side. Sign up for judo, sign up for jiu-jitsu, sign up for wrestling, sign up for something that's completely different than what you've done before, but they complement each other. But if you stick to something that's very similar and you go to something else that's very similar, you're not really extending and expanding your knowledge and your mindset when it comes to self-defense as a whole. So my recommendation, if you have prior experience, start with something that's fresh, yet complements what you already have experience with. If you have a little bit of experience with something and you had to leave it for whatever reason just due to other priorities, then maybe go back, revisit it, and continue training in that system. If you left simply just because you got bored, then yes, completely change, try something completely different. Even if it doesn't combine or go well together, that's fine. Try something fresh and see if that sparks your interest. But again, your experience is going to drastically kind of determine which way you go, because you're already going to be clouded towards one specific discipline over another just because you've either had good or bad experience with that in the past, and that's going to, again, directly impact which decision you end up going from there. Number 4, what is your reasoning behind wanting self-defense? Now, this is something that you have to ask yourself because, again, self-defense is a commitment. If you're looking for something short-term, then you should might as well just turn this video off and go sign up for a seminar. Because again, if you want a quick fix of self-defense, it's not really going to happen. Yes, you can learn something very quickly in a few hours. You can learn something over the course of a couple days, but it's not something that's going to carry on. And there's a very good chance that if it did come to a real situation, you wouldn't remember that stuff anyway. But if you're here because you really want to commit to self-defense, you have to ask yourself, what is my why? Why do I want to learn self-defense? Am I going into a career that requires self-defense of some sort? Law enforcement, security, escort service? Are you going for something that requires you to be able to use those tools on a regular basis? Have you been a victim of an attack before, whether it's a sexual attack, a physical attack, some sort of altercation that has impacted your life? Are you looking for something now to give yourself that confidence back and that feeling of protection that I can defend myself? You need to determine whatever your why is. You're going to get tired some days, you're going to get burned out some days, but if you can remember your why, you're going to be focused and you're going to be willing to get back in there and continue training going forward. You're also going to be more willing to branch out and try different things. You're going to be more willing to train on a more regular basis. You're going to be more willing to get physical and put yourself in uncomfortable positions and learn how to control them. Everything that we've discussed above will happen because of your why. Now, here are the 3 systems that I recommend. Number 1, Thai boxing. Now, the reason I picked this over regular boxing is simply just due to the fact that you have alternative strikes that you can use. Yes, boxing is great because you learn how to punch, you learn how to take a punch, you learn how to block, you learn how to move. But that's it. That's where it ends. It's all in your hands. Thai boxing, you still get the punches, but you get to add in elbows, you get to add in knees, you get to add in multiple different styles of kicks while also moving. Now, the great thing about Thai boxing is a lot of their strikes focus on close distance as well as keeping distance. So in a situation where someone's coming after you, you are able to keep the distance by using the proper strikes. And if for whatever reason they get close enough, then you can start using your close quarter strike. The nice thing with Thai boxing is if you don't have the time to train as often as you would like, or often enough to where you need to focus on the technical and the repetitions to pick up the material, you can pop in once a week, twice a week, every other week, and still learn something from it because you're going to be learning the material head on. Now, it may take you a little bit to grasp how to do the specific punches and the specific kicks and the body movements, but once you get that down, then it's just pretty much you just getting the flow and understanding how to get the power and how to get the speed and the consistency. But other than that, there's really not much more to it in regards to technique. And it's not something where if you skipped a month and came back that you're going to be completely lost on what the class is doing. You may be out of shape a little bit, but you're going to know what's going on. Number 2, jiu-jitsu. Someone's pinning you down, someone's holding you up against a wall, someone's grabbing you, someone's trying to abduct you. All of those situations revolve around one common theme: grappling. If you don't know how to grapple, if you don't know how to break grips, if you don't know how to control grips, you're not going to be able to get out of those situations. I can tell you for a fact that there's very few finishing moves that I would use from jiu-jitsu on the street. However, what I will tell you is that the movements, the way to move around your person, the way to control your person, the way to use their energy against them, that is stuff that I 100% take with me to the street anytime I'm working on self-defense techniques. The ability to control a person's full weight, the ability to understand how to move their weight, the ability to move your own weight in comparison to them, how to move freely, how to get out of situations, all of that applies directly to the street. The difference between this and Thai boxing is that you do have to be there consistently. There's a lot of technical aspects when it comes to jiu-jitsu, and it is a very technical based sport. So you have to be able to be there on a consistent basis. If you're looking for something that you can only train once and maybe even twice a week, I do not recommend that you start with jiu-jitsu. That is something that I recommend you do if you can consistently go 2 to 3 times a week every week. Trust me, you take a month off the class or a couple months off out of class and you come back, you are going to be completely lost and you're going to need a little bit of a refresher to freshen up on your moves that you have learned in the past. Again, Thai boxing, you can take as much time as you want. You can come back in. Yes, you may be a little bit slower on your punches or your kicks, but you're going to know how to punch and you're going to know how to kick. Jiu-jitsu, you have to keep the mind fresh and you have to keep those repetitions going day in and day out in order to keep your body in sync with each other. So it is a bit more of a technical discipline, but it is still one of the best ones that I feel is out there. Last but not least, Krav Maga. Now, I'm sure you all probably thought that Krav Maga was going to fall up on that list at some point. I feel like anyone that I've ever talked to about self-defense has always brought up Krav Maga. Now, the reason being is because it's probably one of the most well-known self-defense systems out there. It is 100% focused on self-defense. It is street-oriented. It is real-life-oriented. And everything that they do in that class is focused on how to survive in a real-life situation. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not other great systems out there. There are. But a lot of those systems, you don't learn that type of material until you reach black belt. Krav Maga, you're going to start learning some of that high-end self-defense material day one. Now, again, this is another system that requires a lot of attendance. You have to be there on a consistent basis in order to practice these movements. You're still going to learn your strikes. You're still going to learn how to throw kicks and knees and punches and all the sorts of different hand strikes that you can do. And you're going to learn the appropriate targets to throw those at and the different types of damaging moves that you can do, essentially. Wherever on the body that you're supposed to hit, they will teach you and they will demonstrate and they will present you the different options that you have when it comes to those techniques. So Krav Maga is a great place to start if you're looking for a strictly self-defense focused discipline. If you are really committed to learning self-defense and you are training in a system, you have to understand how to take in and out the proper material that is really going to work. Don't focus on the flashy moves. Don't worry about all the BS filter stuff that they give you. Take what you know will work and you apply that to your training and your mindset when it comes to self-defense. If you really want to take jiu-jitsu just because you want to learn jiu-jitsu, fine. If you're taking jiu-jitsu because you want to learn how to protect yourself, then as you're training jiu-jitsu, you really have to focus on, am I going to use this on the street? And you have to constantly be thinking as you're going through the motions, will this work on the street? What situation could I use this in? Where would this apply? How would I pull this off of someone who are doing this instead? What happens if someone pulls a weapon on you? All of these thoughts have to go through your mind no matter which system you're training in, because again, if you're training in these for self-defense, you have to put yourself in the mindset of self-defense. Lastly, remember, self-defense is not always about the physical application on the street. It's about building that confidence. It's about knowing that I can protect myself against any situation that I may come across or that I can protect my loved ones. It's not always about the fact of I can just pound this person, I can throw them on the ground, I can put them in a chokehold, I can break their arm. It's about understanding that I can prevent a fight from happening in the first place. It's about understanding that I know what's going on around me. I understand who's around me at all times, and I'm fully aware of my surroundings no matter where I'm at. That type of stuff comes from training consistently and building that confidence and building that awareness and understanding the situations that you're in, being able to read body language. All of that comes from training in the martial arts in general. It doesn't matter which discipline you're in, you will learn that characteristics no matter where you're training. So always kind of keep that in the back of your mind, that it doesn't always have to be about the physical part of self-defense. It's what am I going to take away as a person that's going to allow me to walk with confidence and prevent any of this stuff from happening in the first place. My last question for you is this: which system are you going to pick? Now remember, if you are enjoying this content, please consider hitting that subscribe button, turn on your bell notification so that you never miss a new video, and as always, stay safe.